life in another perspective for us to see that we're going to be okay. And again, we're not alone. I do got to warn you, I do speak ADD. It's kind of like drawing a star, right? You start here, you go here, eventually, oh, I get it, it's a star. I will do a little Q&A at the end in case I get lost, chasing a squirrel somewhere and I go another direction. And you go, hey, you never finished this part. What happened? We'll go back to that for you. You might see me do this. That's because the clicker doesn't reach that far. I'm not weird. I know there's nothing in my hand. It's just a signal upstairs. Okay, it might be a little weird, but it's still a signal from upstairs. In my story, I don't try to push anything like, I hope you get this or that. Like I said, it's like a song. Some of you are going to relate to it in different parts than others are going to relate to. And you're going to get what you need out of it. And that's why I just want to share who I am with you today. And that you can go from the brinks of death to chasing your dreams and be whatever you want to be. We hear about it all the time. But let me show you what I did. Not because I want to say, oh yeah, look at me. It's going to want to say, if I can do it, you can do it. That's what it's about. I was born in 1971. Cutest baby ever, right? Now here's my cute picture. This is fun a little bit. I can't fake it. It's like, I don't want to go yet. I'm the one with the long hair. As you can see by the next slide. I joined the Army the first time in 1989 at a Desert Storm. I was a roller skating DJ, if you couldn't tell. I like Def Leppard by the earring, you can tell that. I went to Desert Storm, came back, 19 years old. I was a divorced alcoholic war veteran. It was rough. Didn't understand it. Calm war. Wasn't a whole lot going on in that war. But it's just the fact of being out there. Physical wounds are one thing. But it's the mental wounds, the invisible wounds are the hardest ones that we continue to battle. After 9/11, after being in the Army for 10 years, during that time, I started a family. My kids were used to me being home. 9/11 happened, and I knew I had to go back in. I knew I had to be able to still serve. I was only 30 years old. I was still young. I could still teach the veterans or active duty today lessons that I learned as a young soldier back in the Desert Storm time. So I went back in, and I left and went back to basic training. And this is a photo of my kids at the time, how old they were when their dad went back in the military, and they had no idea what military life was like. So they made me a cute little sign in basic training. Here I went back in 2003. I went to Iraq in the initial part of the war with 82nd Airborne. I got to play with all kinds of fun weapons there. But I want to share with you guys a little bit about what we go through mentally out there. And I know we've got some veterans in here tonight that can probably contest to this. You guys see and hear about the war all the time. We're shooting, the fighting. But what mentally do we go through? Because, you know, we're worried about our family back home. The first time Desert Storm, I didn't have any young children back home. I wasn't married. Well, I was married, but that was the first wife, and I don't count her all the time. We're still friends today. She's good people. But you worry about different things. We're just as worried back home. You don't hear about that and how we deal with that. And I like to share this because it's something we all can do. It's a tool I used out there to clear my mind. Back home, we had problems going on, and we don't know how to address it, but we got to go on a mission. If we're thinking about back home, somebody else's life is in danger, either myself or the person sitting to the left and right of me. So I got to clear my mind when I go on a mission so I'm not thinking about back home and I'm focused. So I'd write everything down. I know you hear about it all the time. You can't sleep at night, write it down. You help get on a piece of paper. Well, from that writing stuff down, I questioned myself all the time. I made a decision to go back in the military after having a family. It's a tough decision. Children change your life. You guys know that have children, that it makes you think a little differently about your life. You're not so risky anymore. But I felt there was something bigger that I was supposed to do. Well, my youngest daughter was having a really hard time. She was 3 years old, or 4 years old, about to turn 5. And her first time her dad was gone this long. She didn't understand it. She started having accidents in her pants. She wouldn't talk to nobody. She felt abandoned. I got letters telling me this. that my poor daughter's seeing a child psychologist because of the decision that I made. I didn't know how to deal with that. That was hard for me, but I knew I'm doing my job. I know I'm doing what I'm meant to do. How do I explain that to her? How do I help her deal with that? So I wrote everything down to clear my mind before I went on a mission. And I never planned to be a poet, but I went back and looked at those notes again after the mission, and I think a lot of you guys can relate to this. It's called Why. Why can't I be there is the question in her mind. How to explain war to a 4-year-old is the answer I cannot find. My baby feels abandoned. Rightfully, this makes her mad. Thoughts of this brings me to tears. Today, I'm feeling sad. I dream of her sitting next to me with her tiny hand on my thigh. She looks up at me and says it's okay as she wipes a tear from my eye. Why can't I be there? Precious moments are passing by. Pale skin, jet black hair, an alligator tear falls from her eye. I nearly lost my life yesterday. Tomorrow she turns 5. It was either him or me. I must fight to stay alive. If I don't make it home, how will her mother explain? If I never hold her again, how do you heal that pain? How do I explain war to a child that freedom is not free, and a year apart from daddy is worth a sacrifice for you and me?